Hey, it's Way here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about interesting topic. Couldn't find my stand, so it's gonna be a little shaky. We'll be fine. Um, a big thing right now is like with the ETs, and mythology, our creation, uh, Anunnaki, Sumerian gods, other influence of genetic manipulation. Even here, there's a resistance to speaking on these things, which is interesting in itself. So I've seen a lot when it comes to this, in my own experience and others as well, in recent shifts, you could say, in the spiritual framing of what's mainstream, what's kind of becoming more and more mainstreamly accepted. And certain things that I haven't heard anybody mention that I'm aware of to certain degrees. And so I feel like I have an obligation to speak on that because there's very few people that I've heard speaking on these topics. And there's reasons for that because there is very little known about it. And even those, well, myself, I can only speak for that. I do have some capacity for insight of past reflection, some recall in relations to past life as it relates to this. And it is stuff that I don't know that anybody really wants to talk about if they do see, because it's certainly only beneficial to those with a certain capacity to open the heart and not come from a place of judgment and see innocently and receptively with love, with open ears, and just also taking it lightly, and because it's not different, like the idea that there's a hierarchy in the illusion, or that if there's a fear around something, like what's going on there, if there's a resistance there, what's going on there. And really I had to come into that point for myself to see that, like, what is that? Okay, is that an intelligence, or is it just fear masquerading as intelligence, something trying to preserve itself? And this is just something I had to start looking at and be honest, be completely honest with, and really investigate, investigate anew. Because if it keeps coming up, it's always coming up anew. For that reinvestigation, for me to investigate that honestly, to meet that with new sight and with new love, honestly. So to get back to that, one of the things that's really being pushed, I found, is this narrative of that influence, and that somehow like we wouldn't be here without that. And it's really a subtle level of like victimization and like idolization. And I do see, like, there's the intelligence to a lot of channelers I've seen, like in Integrous channelers, where they're talking about this, like, you don't bow, like, don't, we're equal, in the Christ, and in essence we're equal. So it's not like that at all. So when you see these types of like pushes of like some amazing, like, in it all being technological, also is another thing I really don't like, that is somehow it's a pointing, it takes away the entirety of the mysticism of the spiritual aspect of the potential for power that we cannot explain, and tries to put it all into technological reference. I respect that, but at the same time, I can't get behind that 100%, and I have to call that out. And I've supported, and I've seen people like Billy Carson, who I do, what he talks about, but I've seen him, really heavily lean on that. And I also understand that that's there's an environment for that. So it's like a time, you kind of the intelligence and like what you can say in a certain environment is that. And I've heard him speak on like that being our innate potential as well. And us having, so I'm not like critiquing him in that way, but I was just, as far as like I've heard him lean towards the technological explanation. There is that aspect to it. There are civilizations and societies that is their leaning. All right, now there is what is always in the highest essence and alignment, what you want to call it, ascended civilizations, ascended masters, ascended societies that, have ascended in entire collective consciousnesses together. That's happened. That's happened on this planetary sphere time and time again. And that gets written out of our history because there's something that still wants to be served seemingly outside of the self, right? And we can see this attempted programming, and I don't have any fear with this because I really find it kind of funny. It's an attempt to still like lure myself, and it's real funny because right behind me right now are all these fantasy books, and it's what I've found is you can see that it's an attempted programming, a limitation to our true creative potential and what we can dream up for ourselves. So it's a programmed dream. We're being or attempted to be programmed. I've seen a lot of light workers fall into this, rather just like not deal with it and escape it, because there's like a level of peace and comfort and not having like, oh, it's all a dream, it's not real, you don't have to stay. Well, okay, well then, bye-bye, check out. But something's, checking in, and that's love, that's the Lord, that's the light. So it's like we can embrace that together and let that take the reins of, and not in that passive way, but in the way of like, what do we want to see? What do we want to create? Do we want to like the sphere world? Do we need like aliens to come down and save us? I saw some spiritual ETs will save us. I was like, what? You don't need that's a new idea of a savior. What are we doing here? The truth that's ridiculous, guys. All right, so getting back to what I was talking about that nobody's really talking about is, I've seen this huge push. And I'm big into hermeticism. I used to have the joke, and a buddy he called me the Hermetic Prince. So I'm big into that. Those traditions and that information and knowledge. Very, very beautiful, amazing. Some of the highest level of occult knowledge that was made public about a little over 100 years ago, back at a little after the 1900s, actually right before, that's no mistake, right before World War One. A lot of these books that were, very occult information were made public because the information was coming through. It's not like somebody asked me that the other day, like, why is like, Terrence Howe, you got like all this like information, this like all this, old occult knowledge that's now being made public, and, advanced geometry, astrology, like all this stuff, astronomy, how it all ties in, and the past, how it's all covered up, and seeing, there has been some nefarious stuff at play. All right, and so that's what I've I've heard this new shift in the Hermeticism and Thoth being, which is funny because that's him right there. It's a little statue of him being like this new form of worship, this new deitized being, and in some like technological advanced way. All right, so and nobody's talking about like Rudolf Steiner's work either. He used to talk about like the rise of Ahriman, and you won't stop the Ahrimanic incarnation. And so essentially this is like that, it's like a new, like some form of like idol deityship and personification. And it takes away, you don't need that outside of yourself. And I think this is like one of the best things from mythology, all those stories, if you go back to like even the Greek stories, man, with the Titans, it's like that was the Titans. Who's that? Kronos, his father time, and Rhea, his Mother Earth, I think, and then their son. And these are all, that was true man. That was the true potential. And then what happened? The gods, the sons and then the lesser ones ended up somehow like, conquering them and trapping them, and limiting them. And then man could always reascend, then the sons and the ones that were deemed worthy, could reascend, and da 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 da. They're always fighting and bickering. So I went on that ramble. With the Thoth thing, though, some information that I came into was that, this was part of a you could say the history always gets twisted up. And I've heard this framed as the Great Deception, where there was a lot of nefarious things done. And even speaking on this, there's a heavy pressure, but also a lot of coming in through the throat, a lot of clarity, a lot of truth, a lot of understanding and seeing with this. But it really ties into, there's a lot of information on this, and you can look it up, and if it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at the same point, what I'm getting back to here is we're writing our own story now. This is like, whether there's some type of influence in the past that is orchestrated some grand deception and is still trying to, and da 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 da, whether people are consciously or unconsciously serving that, or something outside of the true light, something trying to stand in the way. That's just exposing the beauty and the love and the dream and the scape of everything. But at the same time, we're being called to stand in the truth and in the love and in the light in the highest degree. And you learn to live in the jungle and learn to, because that's what it is. It's learning to relive in the jungle without fear, without that warrior mentality, without looking upon the other creatures with fear just because they've behaved in a certain way, because I fell into a certain way of behavior. We can see the innocence of that. We can see that, that fear, behind that fear, there was just like some type of self-preservation, some type of distorted love. You can really see that. You can actually like experientially confirm these things and have these, revelations. And that's that altering point. That's that point of being able to come, and to where we can write anew and fresh. Because it's through changing that past here and now, we're rewriting the future. We're changing it all. Nothing's set. The mosaic's ever evolving. It's like that kaleidoscope. It's just, and we can see it's all just beauty. It's all just love. But we don't need to have any fear. We don't need to have the dream dreamed for us. We can step into that together. We can look into each other's eyes and laugh. I see you. I see you, brother. I get it. It's love. It's love. Love. So, I pray the day is here soon. I see it. We sit around the fire, under the sun, all creatures, love, singing, laughing, living, enjoy, together. Thank you. Thank you. Peace and love. Truth and wisdom. Love and light. Forever and ever.